Wake up, Mr. Freeman. Wake up and smell the ashes.
Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new edition of GameTales, a show where we talk about various different things, and because it's been 20 years since Half-Life 1 was released and 14 years since Half-Life 2 was released and probably minus 30 years before Half-Life 3 will be released, we're now talking about Half-Life. And I'm again joined by Stefan from the channel Stefan Nonsense. Hi Stefan.
Hello Unicom, and good morning, afternoon to our listeners. I hope everyone is doing decent, at least, because this is probably going up on Monday, so happy Monday.
Yes, Monday is a good day according to, well, not according to a cat, but it's generally an okay day, I guess. Unless you're in school and hate your job and just want to stay in bed and watch the beautiful clouds move around and enjoy the warmth of the sun and the beauty of nature and not stay locked up.
I think that's most people, actually.
Yeah.
I think you just described like 4 or 5 separate Venn diagrams that intertwine quite a bit.
So, Half-Life. We have a bit of a opposing views, because opposing force, we'll get into that later. We have sort of opposing views on the series. You couldn't get into it, really. You played most of it, and you haven't really... You wouldn't call it your favorite, would you?
Oh, no, not by a long shot. And I always have a bit of a... I got into it so little that it's outside my realm of comprehension why people like it as much as they do. So maybe during the show you can explain it. Maybe I can come away with some realization about it, because I played Half-Life 1. I played it actually kind of close to when it was released, to be honest. Not on my computer. I didn't have a computer back then. I played it at a friend's house. But even then, I don't know. It literally did nothing for me.
Nothing at all?
Nope.
Not even a little bit?
No, it was fun while you played it, I guess. But there's nothing. I have zero any kind of memories or interest in Half-Life, to be honest.
Well, a lot of people will sort of disagree with you. They have had I'm
not saying it's a bad game or anything. I'm just saying I don't understand.
Thinking of a way to make you actually understand what Fallout may mean to some and why some people have stuck with it, but you've played it when it came out, so you probably know what it was like to play it back then, because you played it back then, so you know the context it was released in. You know it better than I do, because I didn't play it back then.
Yeah, no, of course. That's why I'm so not. That's why it's even that much more difficult for me to understand. Why I understand the impact it had, and I'm not gonna like Counter-Strike, and from like an industry point of view. But for it to have the can we say it's like a cult-like, but not in the sense of cult as in an obscure thing that only a very dedicated niche follow, in the sense of almost religious fervor like passion that this series entails from gamers of many various ages. That's just it passed me by completely.
I wouldn't say it's cult-like. I mean, there is some merit into why people like it, and it's the fervor that it sort of entails from people is not really that much about the games themselves. It's more about the third one not being out 14 years after it should have been out already, like 5 times at least.
That I can kinda understand.
People are really held up on it, or they really like Half-Life because they don't know how it's gonna end.
So it's a story thing?
Well, one part, yeah, it's absolutely a story thing because it's a story that Valve has been trying to tell for 20 years, and it doesn't have an answer yet. So that thing will nag on everybody's mind. It's like watching a TV show and having it be canceled, or no, not canceled, taken off the air. Like season 1 premieres, it's okay, it's good. Season 2 comes along, it's okay, it's good. Season 3 is in development, and it's in development. And
Hey man, it's better than just getting one season of stuff. Because I remember now when you were saying that, I remember there was this show. There was Blade.
Oh yeah, the TV series that was on HBO.
Had a TV series, had the season, an entire season of episodes. And whilst the first, it kind of needed like the first 5 or 6 episodes to like understand what it was doing and get its footing. I was really with it towards from the middle to the end of the season. Plus, I really liked the guy playing Blade in the series, hip hopper called Sticky Fingers. But yeah, season 1 had a nice cliffhanger and it got dropped.
Well, imagine if it didn't get dropped, it just was sort of in development and you kept hearing about it and it's still not here. And it sort of became a running joke that it's not going to be released, it's going to be released next year. And
the thing is, I'm kind of used to that because there's been, like recently, Terry Gilliam's been trying to make
the Don Quixote.
The Don Quixote movie for 20 years. And yeah, I think he's had like, I think this is the 3rd or 4th version of the movie because, things have changed and actors have, I think some of them died actually in the meanwhile. So he had some actors he had cast for the role, I think died in the meanwhile. So I'm kind of used to that. I just guess the gaming generally audience wasn't prepared for that.
Well, it's also because unlike Terry Gilliam's film, there have been 2 other Half-Life games leading up to the 3rd one. So it's been building over the course of 2 decades. So it's
also you have to consider
it's like pouring Mentos into a bottle of Coke and then putting on the top. It's
you
just
also have to
building.
Yeah, I'm getting. I get that, and I get the expectation thing. But the two games had to be like truly extraordinary in order to elicit that sort of a following. I assume
they were. They are kind of the second one on the list is one of the highest rated games that you can find on Metacritic and all the other sites that rank reviews and stuff. So there is sort of
but we don't care about that.
Yeah.
I think we've established that in the reviewer 2-parter.
Yeah, but so the general consensus is that people really liked Half-Life 2. Critics especially really liked Half-Life 2. Apart from you.
It was just an FPS thingy with some puzzles and platforming and stuff. Granted, I have to be honest. So while I did play a lot of Half-Life 1, I didn't play till the end because again, it wasn't my thing. When it came to Half-Life Episode 2, I had a pirated version, pretty much 99.8% of the Romanian gaming populace at that time. And I reached a certain point in the game where it basically crashed. It bugged out. I just couldn't continue any longer. And that's where I left it. And I can't really tell you exactly where that was. It was, I went through the entire beginning stuff, and I remember, I think it was after like a sewer type of area or some sort of stuff. But I had zero interest to try it again because, yeah.
So you haven't actually seen the ending of Half-Life 2 Episode 2?
No, I haven't.
But you know of it?
I know, yeah, sure, I know of it, but I wasn't. Again, for me,
it didn't really like stick with you, sort of.
Yeah, no, it really didn't. It's really not. It wasn't in my area of interest. And once I got a computer, I started playing older games because it was As I said, it was a 486 DX4, and I was playing like XCOM, Enemy Unknown, and Heroes 2, and later on, the Fallout and Diablos. So that I had chosen my path, my gaming path, and apparently it's the same path I'm back on now.
Well, let's see if we can shed some light on why Half-Life was so beloved by so many people. Well,
Yes, please.
when I think back, most FPSs of that day of the early 90s were mostly this is a level, get to the ending, and it was sort of. They weren't what you would call super duper connected. Exceptions would probably be something like Unreal, which came out the same year as Half-Life.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't you like mid-month in a entire series about FPSs?
Yeah.
Plug.
And most of them, yeah, by coincidence, and a lot of them are just a succession of levels. They are tied by mission briefings, but a lot of them were really light on details like story, characters, or having you feel like you're in the world. You're just in a succession of levels. You're just there to kill and blow up stuff. Half-Life did things differently. It started out really boring, like super boring. I couldn't get myself to actually play it at internet cafes because the intro was so long. I was paying by the hour.
We all were.
And there was no way I was going to spend most of that hour just going through that gondola ride, that little train, that monorail.
That is a very slow beginning. But again, it wasn't necessarily something that was seen or done before that. So
it was there to make a point. It was there to show you that this was just an everyday job for this guy, for Gordon Freeman.
Okay.
It had a point to it. You would see Barney Calhoun bang on a door because he forgot his keys or something, couldn't open a door. You'd see characters just moving around. You'd see a world that was not there for you to shoot it. It was the living world. It had life in it. It was, I think, it was trying to build up a setting, a world, a place. And it did it effectively, slowly. It was meant for you to look at the stuff around you, and it actually acted as a bit of a tutorial as well for your movement, because you could move around and bounce around and jump as all you wanted.
True.
It was kind of slow though, so they did speed it up in the second one, thankfully. The train ride was a bit shorter. And once you got off the train, you would be greeted by a guard who would take you to your place of work. You'd talk to people, which is, again, something you didn't do in most FPSs. You would do them in some hybrids of FPS and first-person shooters sometimes.
Technically speaking, people would talk to you. You wouldn't talk back.
Well, you're Gordon Freeman. You don't need to talk back. People know what you're going to say. Because you're Gordon Freeman. Like, they take a look at you once saying, yeah, I know what Gordon's going to say. He's so cool, man.
With those glasses. Yeah, with those horn-rimmed glasses.
Technically, he didn't have glasses in the original cover of Half-Life. I saw that on the LGR's
video. Yeah, I saw that also.
He didn't have glasses. They added them later to make him, I guess, a bit more approachable, a bit less threatening.
Made him a bit more science person-like,
Yeah, I guess because the first version of Gordon was Ivan the Space Biker.
What?
The Gold Source engine, which is the Half-Life engine, was built off of the Quake engine, and most characters looked like they would in Quake, with really low poly characters and blocky textures, and he looked like Ivan the Space Biker. Like, his beard was part of a texture that went all the way down to his costume and was all baked in.
So kind of like a dwarf.
Yeah, but taller.
Mm-mm. Okay, I see. Yeah, well, it's a good thing they did. They did decide to upgrade that.
Mm-hmm. And it went on from that place where people talked at you to you interacting with them a bit. You could ruin somebody's lunch in a microwave. You could flush a toilet. for fun. It wasn't really the kind of interaction you would see in the build engine, but it was close enough. Also, it had unexpectedly great AI for the roaches. Sometimes you see cockroaches like in the kitchen, and they reacted to light, and they reacted to pretty much anything around them. They had a bit of a simulation to them that was. There was a joke, the running joke of the fish AI of Ghost of Call of Duty Ghosts, where they loaded the fish AI in the trailer, and in game they had no AI. Where Half-Life had AI for the roaches and never told anybody about it.
Now that you mentioned this, I actually wonder. So they have mapped that. I think they can map out the few neural connections that roaches actually have. The things that basically make them wire. So I wonder how much space or processing power that would actually require to implement in a game nowadays. I'm referring make them truly realistic.
I think you could do it. Like you could probably train a machine learning system to act like a cockroach.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like what I'm thinking about. Yeah, and then have it and like have it multiply, because that's what cockroaches do anyway.
Yep.
And then iterate on. Although granted, gonna need some kind of limitations, because depending on the limitations, you might just wake up with like a anthropomorphic cockroach at a certain point.
Yeah, you'd
like a really smart cockroach.
Yeah, you'd have, what was the movie called? Joe's Apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'd have that situation.
That's a hidden, obscure gem that no one talks about, and they should.
Yeah, it's a really funny movie with the guy from Sliders.
Yeah, apropos of cockroaches, though, for our Stellaris players out there, if when you're not playing, if your race doesn't start in the Sol system and you as an alien race discover a Sol system, you might have the opportunity of actually finding it after a nuclear holocaust, which is very funny. And the species of alien creature you find after the nuclear holocaust is a semi-sentient cockroach,
which you can enslave.
Yeah, you can uplift and then enslave. Yeah, which is what I did. Which is why I know, because I was playing. I think I was playing a sort of a Klingon type alien race. So slavery was okay. Which now, if someone takes that out of context, that's gonna be a bad day on the internet.
We're probably gonna get to make another show about Stellaris one day, because there's a plushie mode out there.
A plushie mode?
Yeah, you can control a race of plushie creatures with fluffy planets.
Oh, okay. That sounds very interesting. I'm more interested in the. I think I'm gonna get once my desktop is fixed, which again I have no news on that. I'm really interested in the Star Trek, mode, because for obvious reasons. So probably whenever I play, I try to play basically the Federation of Planets anyway. But yeah, we might have to do some crossovers. Okay. Plushies, tribbles, Star Trek. See where I'm going? See where I'm going with this?
Yeah, that would work. So back to Half-Life.
Yeah.
The game really tries to set it up as you being in this world. It tries to make it seem immersive, because until you get the environmental suit, there's no HUD. You are just in the world, and the HUD is explained through the suit. It's there because you are seeing the heads-up display of the suit. And then it just lets you interact with the world, doing your job until you create a cascade failure? What is it called? Yeah, I think it was a cascade failure that causes an interdimensional race to invade the Earth, and you grab a crowbar and try to save it, or at least save yourself.
Yeah, I think the trying to save yourself thing is the main thing there.
Yeah, and this is when it sort of has been a bit different since most compared to most other FPS up until now. But from this point on, it becomes sort of a different beast compared to Duke Nukem, to Doom, to Quake. It's actually, well, I guess the closest thing to it would be probably Quake 2, because that was a bit more linear as well. It's what I think could be called the blueprint to the modern FPS, the modern single-player FPS, where you have a linear succession of levels that allow you some degree of freedom in how you play, with what weapons you find, what weapons you choose, and how you deal with the enemies. But for the most part, it's a linear experience. And that can be done in good ways, like Half-Life, or in God, why are they making this again? Bad ways, like Call of Duty and the last Medal of Honor games. And I say that Half-Life made this in a good way because it didn't really feel boring, at least to me. It always felt like it was trying to switch things up. And they did have that mania of inserting jumping puzzles everywhere, which have you noticed that every FPS does this? Since they made jumping in games a thing, they put it in FPS games like you always have a jumping puzzle.
Yeah, but don't they actually start with Half-Life?
I think they may have started...
Because I do remember having to deal with a bunch of like throwing some crates around and moving them so that you don't electrocute yourself, and walking on beams and that sort of stuff.
I think it may have been in Dark Forces 2 as well. There was some jumping in there, but yeah, Half-Life really put a really big emphasis on the jumping puzzles, on the environmental puzzles in general, because, well, you were playing a scientist. You weren't supposed to be really super duper great at handling weapons, even though you sort of became really handy with them. Probably because, I don't know, Gordon may have some hobbies that we weren't made aware of.
Oh, that's what we would find out in episode 3, I guess.
Yeah, when Gordon starts to speak and says, "My name is Gordon, Freeman Gordon. I used to work for MI6.
That's episode 3 is actually going to be an Origins episode.
Oh no, actually, the VR one is. Have you heard? Right?
Ah, okay.
Valve is making a VR. Valve is working on its own VR headset, and it's set to come out with a game, a Half-Life game, a Half-Life VR game that is a prequel to Half-Life 1.
Oh, okay.
Now, it can mean two things, yeah.
They're stirring the pot, okay.
Yeah, it can either be with Gordon Freeman in his youth, I don't know, learning to shoot every gun possible, or it can be with, like, you can officially put Gina in the mainstream story of the series, because Gina was the character that you met in the tutorial. There was a hologram of a woman telling you how to jump, how to do things, because they did have a separate tutorial. But in the PlayStation version, she actually delivered the sample that you then put into the reactor and blow it up.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to play as her. Although, what I'm really hoping will happen is that Valve will retcon this, like take it out of the canon. Not against Gina, but in the fan canon, the delivery was made by Gordon Freeman from the concerned Half-Life comic series.
Okay.
We'll get to that later when we get to Half-Life 2. But
maybe the prequel is actually, since it's VR, you'll actually be playing the individual sperm that created Gordon Freeman.
Yeah, that's a weird idea.
Well, it will work well with the VR part, because tunnels, that sort of stuff. And you can have weapons. You can have like particular proteins and stuff.
That'd be weird.
Yeah, that would be the exact type of. I think being Valve, that would be the exact type of bait and switch that they could be able to pull off, and the people would thank them for it.
We'll see when they actually announce the thing and don't take 50 years to actually release it.
It's probably not gonna be an individual sperm simulator, although maybe.
Well, what really stood out is that Half-Life tried to make its combat encounters interesting. I mean, the AI in it was kind of okay. They wouldn't just rush at you and die like most enemies in most FPSs. They'd hunker behind cover. They would. I think this is the game that started the tendency to, he's over there reloading. He's shooting at us. He's not dead yet. Throwing a grenade. You know, the call-outs from the enemies. I think Half-Life started it. But back then it didn't seem so stupid. Yeah,
I'm describing what I'm doing. Yeah, but no, the AI, I do remember it being quite annoying, actually.
Yeah, they try to roll in the cover and sneak out behind you.
Yeah, in the sense that, but it did make for the combat, especially once the soldiers show up.
Mm-hmm.
It did make for very interesting combat. I'm gonna give that to the game for sure. But again, that wasn't enough to get me hooked or anything. I much rather play something like really weird, like Blood.
Yeah, Blood was definitely a lot weirder. This tried to be a bit more grounded. It started out as being more grounded until the alien showed up.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's kind of relatively cool. Sure. That I get. So it's not like all of this past, like all of this meaning and nuance just pass me by, because I get all of that. I just didn't understand, and I still don't understand why it made such a big impact on people. That's just the thing. I think it's actually some kind of a retroactive sort of thing, because people really enjoyed the follow-up things that came out of Half-Life, like Team Fortress and obviously Counter-Strike, which used to be called.
Well, I wouldn't
Half-Life
say that, because most of the people I know that play Counter-Strike have no clue what Half-Life was. I was trying to explain to them that this is it's running in the same. If you enter in the other exit, it's gonna be Half-Life, and they had no idea what it was. Most of them had no clue.
Maybe now, but
back then.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. That just has something to say about the circles you were evolving in, my man.
I know. It was sad, but that's what the majority of the Counter-Strike player base was. People that didn't necessarily play Half-Life.
I agree with you.
Half-Life's multiplayer mode was also quite fun, because you had weird sci-fi weapons to blow each other's faces off.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. Although I've never really never really played that, because they didn't have a lot of LAN action back then.
Yeah, I think maybe that's one of the reasons why probably you don't see Half-Life as being so like unique or out there, or it doesn't stand out for you, because it tried a bit too much to be grounded. Most of the weapons you had were, you got your pistol, you've got your crowbar, you got your shotgun, you got your assault rifle, and then you have the bugs and the alien thing that shoots stuff. But you don't really, and the rocket launcher, because the rocket launcher was fun because you could guide the rocket around, but they didn't have like the BFG, didn't have the thing that bores a hole into the enemy's skull and lets them scream while their brains spurt out. It didn't have that wow factor. Or
the deodorant plus lighter combo.
Yeah,
which is like that particular weapon in Blood still. I still, whenever I think about it, it's one of the first FPS sort of weapons I think about is that. It's just fascinating. I don't know. Anyway, sorry about that. You are. I hope you will be publishing the Blood episode either before this or after this, right?
It's going to be after this. It's this Friday, I think.
Yeah. So keep close to the channel, because later this week, Unicom's going to talk about Blood.
There will be blood.
But no, not the movie, dude. The actual game.
Yeah, there will be blood on the channel. Not mine. I mean,
well, maybe yours, because considering the watch time, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see. So, where was talking about the weapons?
Yep.
Well, like I said, they didn't have the wall factor, but it tried to be grounded, and it did it well. And I think what really set it apart was that if you went into it expecting it to be like another random FPS, a polished one, like a really polished one, really well made with scripted sequences that made things engaging, when you got to the end, you sort of noticed that there was the G-Man at the end, and you remember, I think I may have seen him a bit at the beginning, but then started to remember, wasn't he at that level as well? Wasn't he constantly showing up throughout the level? And that was probably the only reason you had to actually replay the game several times. Because Half-Life is not a non-linear game. It's not a game that will treat you to vastly different experiences every time you play it. But just for completion's sake, for seeing the G-Man where he shows up several times, people have gone back and played it, and I think that's where most of the replay value came from. It from trying to see how much of the story the game sneaked past you.
To be honest, back then, replaying games wasn't necessarily an uncommon occurrence.
Yeah, because people had 2-3 games a year.
Exactly. This was 98. It was still. People had some extra games around, but once you had something major or something even remotely interesting, you would be replaying it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not necessarily maybe on a higher difficulty level.
Mm-hmm. Of course, people that do speed runs have many things in the game that I'm just really impressed by. There's people have mapped to a single key, turning 180 degrees backwards, firing the shotgun, switching back to the weapon you used to have, and then going forward because it gives you a boost of speed forward, just so they can go faster.
That is again. See, this is the type of dedication that, whilst I understand, coming from in the sense that I understand people get that dedicated about games, and what I don't understand is why Half-Life.
Well, it was a polished, good enough game when it came out. And as
maybe
you said,
it's because of the LAN also. Maybe that's much more important for the West. I mean.
For the multiplayer, yeah, Half-Life Deathmatch was really big for a while back then.
And it did spawn Team Fortress, right?
Well, Team Fortress was spawned out of Quake.
Oh, okay.
Then it was turned into a mod for Half-Life as well, just like Counter-Strike was. And they sort of evolved together.
Yeah, I know Counter-Strike was a mod for Half-Life, yes. But I always thought Team Fortress came straight from Half-Life as well.
No. The original mod was for Quake.
Okay, good. So
back in the old days,
getting some new knowledge.
But yeah, the mods definitely help its popularity. And although most of the people I know had no clue what Half-Life was, even though they were playing it, they were sometimes going into the Half-Life main menu and then clicking mods and then Counter-Strike. Still had no idea what Half-Life was. They annoyed me to hell and back because of it. It is quite certain that the popularity of the mods helped the game grow, and people slowly discovered what it was, and they enjoyed it enough to buy its many, many spin-offs.
Yeah, that was those were quite the number of side quells, not really side quells, like approaching the same event from different perspectives.
Yeah, that was actually a very, very unique way of telling a story. I don't think up until then there had been any games that did this, where they told the same story from three perspectives.
Yeah, I do. I will give them credit for that, though. That's one that is interesting, but that interests me from a game designer / storytelling point of view, writing point of view. I find that very interesting. But again, is it because the first game? I mean, so my question is, did those side quells? I don't know what do we call them? Because they're not sequels, spin-offs. Okay, so did those spin-offs appear because the initial game was so popular, or
because it sold really well? Like Half-Life, when it came out, sold really well. It was a big hit, even before the mods.
Okay, because I was going to ask, or is the series so well liked and so appreciated because of the spin-offs.
Well, no, because Half-Life Opposing Force was good because you're playing basically as one of the grunts, the soldiers that was tasked with killing Freeman. That's what you were supposed to do throughout the whole game, and you would have that chance. You would have the ability to create the temporal paradox that caused the game over if he actually got to where he was and killed them in time.
That's nice.
It's kind of a shame that the game didn't let you really follow through with it becoming a alternative ending where you would have to go and fight Nihil, the big bad floating baby in Xen.
Floaty baby.
Xen wasn't really what people liked about the Half-Life at all. Xen was Super Mario basically. You just jumped around most of the time. It took jumping to even a higher level than the previous levels.
I do think that Half-Life is, at least the first one, is very strongly associated with the Black Mesa installation?
Yeah, the Black Mesa.
I think it is synonymous with that particular setting.
Xen, not so much. Xen, not a lot of people liked.
Nope.
Which is kind of okay because, actually, no, I think you do visit Xen in Opposing Force as well. But for the most part, you get stuck in the base itself and you try to do your best to actually kill Gordon Freeman and then maybe survive a war that's going to kill the human race.
Ah, well.
And the thing is that the character, Adrian Shepard, even though he's as much of a character as Gordon Freeman, namely he never talks at all, and I think he had a wrench as a weapon instead of a crowbar, he has never been brought back. He's the only character that has never been brought back.
Did he survive the event?
Yeah, he got put in a locker by the G-Man just as Gordon did.
Ah, okay.
Only
that's Half-Life 3 right there.
He wasn't given the actual choice because at the end of Half-Life 1, the G-Man gives Gordon a choice. I'm going to give you the chance to work for me, or I'm going to give you a fight you can't win. And if you choose a fight you can't win, you're going to end up in a room with one of the biggest enemies in the game. I forget their name was like a gigantic creature, and they're like 1,000 of them. Or looking right at you, and the screen faced black. It's a very, very funny way to end the game. It's like, you're screwed. We're not going to even let you try it.
Mm-hmm. That's what you do. That's what you do in a tabletop game. If you don't want your party to kill the NPCs, you just do not stat the NPCs.
Yeah. If you stat it, they will try to kill it.
Yep. Or, a combination of sleep with it, kill it, eat it. Mm-hmm. One of the things. Or all of them.
So, Opposing Force wasn't made by Valve. It was made by Gearbox Software. There's a close relation between Valve and Gearbox. I think... there was a story going around started by Randy Pitchford that he initially wanted to call his studio Valve, but Gabe Newell wanted at a poker game, and Gabe Newell said that story is complete bullshit. And there goes our monetization for this video and our restriction with that word.
We still don't know. We still don't know if it's the words or anything, but might be. Anyway,
with Opposing Force, they went for a method of making a game that was quite similar to Half-Life, which was it did have story in it, but the story didn't really take away much of the game. You would interact with characters, but it weren't really the main focus. You were mostly alone for the major part of those two games. But with Half-Life Blue Shift, there was a bit more of a shift towards interacting with characters, with talking to them constantly. And of all the spin-offs, well, there was also the Decay one, which added Gina on the PlayStation. This was sort of considered as being the weaker because at this point it was 2001. The engine was a bit old, long in the tooth. I mean, Unreal 2 was at the horizon. And it wasn't really the best received, but it did give the grunt that was banging on the door and the intro name, Barney Calhoun. And I was really expecting him to be an alcoholic because at this point I had already read most of the Half-Life comic. But turns out, no, he wasn't an alcoholic at all. It was just Barney.
Not all mechanics are alcoholics.
No, he's a security guard.
Not all security guards are alcoholics.
But he does owe Gordon a beer.
Alien beer.
No, I think it's just regular beer.
Do you have? Is there any beer in the game? Because I remember something about
I remember
having access to drink dispenser.
I remember the bottles. I don't think you could use them. I think you could shoot them though.
Ah, well, that's one good thing.
So while Gearbox was busy making Half-Life spin-offs, well, the game exploded because of the mods, because well, it was popular as well. And they just keep snowballing and snowballing and snowballing until Valve decided, okay, we're going to make a sequel. And they tried to build it. They made a demo version of it. They took it to E3. It got stolen.
What?
Their code for the Half-Life 2 version they had at E3 in 2002 or 2003 was stolen.
Okay, how about do you have any more details on that? Because that sounds interesting.
Oh yeah, they actually threw somebody in jail for this. Let's see.
Oh, so I wasn't into following the news that closely back then. I was in high school, so had slightly other things on my mind.
Let me look it up and see exactly what happened to the guy that stole the. Okay, the hacker who stole Half-Life 2 is very sorry.
Okay, sure.
Okay, I stole it in 2003. Planned interview, something. That's what I did. Never did it cause harm. If I could undo it, I would. It still makes me sad thinking about it. I would have loved to just stay and watch you do your thing, but in the end, I screwed it up. You're my favorite developer, and I will always buy your games. Which is nice of him to say.
I guess.
Writing, okay. The FBI got involved, so it was a big thing because that thing was it was leaked on the web because of him, and people just dug through it. They started compiling it. They started playing like early, buggy, unfinished versions of the demo that they had at E3, and in it they also found traces of Team Fortress 2.
Ah, okay, that's interesting.
And eventually, that actually turned into a game. There's a big article about the robbery and at Eurogamer. The article is from 2014.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Eventually, continue.
That is the type of Half-Life related news that I actually am interested in. So sure.
So eventually, they did get to actually release Half-Life 2, and Half-Life 2 was met initially with really, really bad reactions from the public. Can you guess why? I'm gonna give
because did they give Gordon Freeman a voice?
Oh no, okay. Not at all. Keep thinking while I drink some water.
I don't know. It was. I have no idea what ignited the gaming community passion back then.
Well, think about it. What would cause people that really like pirating video games to suddenly hate somebody?
Oh, DRM.
Yeah.
Okay,
Steam.
So probably that's why I couldn't play it actually. Yeah.
They launched the game with Steam, so you needed to activate it for it to actually work.
Yes, now that you mention it, I remember. Okay, yeah.
And even though that initial reaction was overwhelmingly negative because, well, for one, not a lot of people had access to internet. I didn't have internet back then. I had the game, though. Couldn't run it. It required more RAM than I had.
What year was this?
2004.
2004. Okay, yeah. No. Now I think I actually got it because I did have in 2004 is when I got the broadband.
Ooh, nice.
So those 2004 level broadband, which was I don't know 50K, but it was better than dial-up.
Yep.
At least 10 times better than dial-up, and way cheaper. So no, I actually had it then because I had the. Was that in 2000? No, I might have had it in 2005 actually, to be honest, because I didn't have capable computer in '04, but I did get one in '05. So I think I tried it in '05.
So in 2004, when it came out, it was that was actually a big year for first-person shooters because you had Doom 3, you had Far Cry, and Doom 3 was touted at the time as being one of the most technologically advanced games. It looked amazing, it looked superb. But do you remember how Doom 3 looked?
I do, because I also got to see that at a friend's house because he had a stronger computer. Yeah, I wasn't impressed. It was cool because it was just in the sense that it was the jump. You've never seen really Doom in really 3D.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't that impressed by Doom 3 either, to be honest.
I don't think a lot of people were. Doom 3 is sort of the moment when the series decided to want to be a bit more serious, a bit more Half-Life, and it.
Which again, how serious can a portal to hell opening up on Mars
Grimdark serious.
Even that, I mean, even when
Turkey punching serious.
Even Warhammer 40K, I mean,
that's tongue in cheek, but this tried to be a bit more like.
I mean they take it semi-serious, but it's very it's very ironic and sarcastic and that sort of stuff, and but how, why, yeah. Anyway,
I mentioned Doom 3 because technologically it was very, very appreciated thanks to its. I think it used normal mapping. It was one of the. Maybe it was one of the first games to use normal mapping, or it used this type of mapping. I think it may have been normal mapping because the polygons were not really what the texture said they were. As you could see people having like square-ish heads, not round. Valve got around this by having their characters have hair, and that hair be a bit flatter, which you didn't really notice. But a lot of people in the Doom were bald, so you could see that they didn't have really round heads, and that didn't really do it any justice. But
there's lots of fleas on Mars in the future. So
yeah. The idea is that graphically, Doom 3 looks horrible compared to Half-Life 2. And compared to Far Cry. Far Cry is so rich and vivid, and it's so colorful, and it's not Doom. Doom just is dark and dark and dark, and doesn't. It exists in a world where duct tape wasn't invented. Because you can't keep the flashlight equipped to your gun. You have to keep it in your hand.
Oh yeah, I remember that thing as well.
They fixed it in the BFG edition because nobody liked it.
So many things that don't make sense. So they basically tried to make it into what? Survival?
System shock. They tried to make, I think Yahtzee pointed this out. They tried to be System Shock, and it didn't. It succeeded somewhat at being what but it wasn't Doom. So Doom 3 is generally ignored.
Yeah, again, it's about the expectations of the audience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were expecting something, Blizzard, and they got something completely different. So that was just they were experimenting, and man, did it bomb.
And with Half-Life 2, people were expecting more Half-Life, and that's exactly what they got. But they got it at a much bigger scale. Like the first game took place in interiors mostly, just interiors, corridor after corridor. The second one
was it was limited by the technology at the time.
Yeah. Second one was mostly in exterior places where you could see the sun, you could see the skies, you could see giant bugs crawling out of the sand trying to kill you, and then you being able to control them and throw the bug bait at some enemy and see them be cut to pieces by the bugs. Half-Life 2 was really like an absolute march of technology in terms of physics. Even its early demos just started the physics and how many crazy things you could do with them, and that's probably one of the biggest attractions of the game. The physics, the sheer amount of dickery you could do.
Didn't you have like a gravity gun or something?
Oh yeah, the gravity gun was probably the best thing in the game. You could just pick up anything and throw it at people. And later you could pick up people and throw them at people.
I think that might have been the subconscious inspiration behind the Ebony Heresy. Now that we're talking about it,
Yeah, probably throwing everything at people.
exact.
And it wasn't the first weapon that you got. You got it after you sort of got you understood what the game was about, what the characters were. You got a lot more story this time, a lot more environmental storytelling with people telling you things and giving you messages, and it was a lot more immersive than the first one.
Yeah, also overhearing stuff because like there were characters just speaking around you and shit was happening. Yeah, I remember that because I played through that part of the game.
And you'd see the Vortigaunt, your former enemies just sweeping the floors.
Yeah, that was weird.
The Freeman has arrived. We welcome the Freeman. Now I sweep floor. Poor Vortigaunt. You still get reactions from people that whenever they saw Vortigaunt in the game, they would instinctively try to shoot it. And
As you would.
yeah, that was also in the. I'm gonna get the comics after this one. It sort of it had the same feel as the first Half-Life, but it was expanded. It was like the big. Have you seen? You know the mariachi movie, the trilogy, the Once Upon a Time in Mexico by Rodriguez. What's his name? With Antonio
Robert
Banderas.
Rodriguez,
Yeah. Well, he made Mariachi, the Troubadour, the first movie, and then he remade it with Desperado.
He made it for like, I don't know, $7,000 or something.
Well, this was a sort of that same situation where Half-Life was Mariachi and Half-Life 2 was Desperado. It was the same kind of concept, aliens taking over. Only this time they actually took over. It's already done, but you still have to fight against them, and it's bigger, it's grander, everything is amped up to 11. It's a bit of a Heroes 2, Heroes 3 situation as well, putting it in video game terms. Everything is bigger, better, and just flat out improved. It doesn't have the same charm in terms of the graphics, but the graphics of Half-Life 1 weren't really what you would call endearing. It was the ones in Half-Life 2 are still really good. Like 14 years later, it still looks great.
It looks great.
Yeah, I don't exactly remember the time to crate that the game has. I think it's probably around 30 seconds. I'm going to have to check that later. Half-Life 1 had a really short time to crate. For those who don't know, time to crate is a method of deciding what the quality of a game depending on how quickly a crate or a barrel shows up in the game. It was invented by the website Old Man Murray, whose writers work for Valve now, and they wrote Half-Life. Half-Life 2, I think they wrote a bit, and Portal very much. They wrote a lot of Portal. So I think the game may have a bigger time to create.
Sure.
What really sort of set Half-Life 2 apart was remember its only tutorial.
Yeah, you were just walking.
Yeah, there was an express moment where it gave you a tutorial. Pick up the can.
Oh yeah.
It had a. Even then, it wasn't like a tutorial that you would see in most games where you would have to pick up the can and put it, in the basket, and then probably do it twice again, so the game knows that you understand. Now you could just shove it in the guy's face, and then he'd chase you and beat you. It was a very, very nice reactive role. That's probably the best feature of Half-Life. Its reactivity. It had a good physics engine, and the NPCs reacted well to it. Like they felt like they were there in that world. They would ragdoll like hell, and you could stick them to walls and make drawings with them.
Okay.
Half-Life 2 was definitely a lot more fun than the previous game, than its predecessor. Just because you could do all sorts of crazy stuff. And the weapons, because you were a bit more into the future, were a bit nuts. Like the gravity gun, the thing that shot balls that disintegrated people. Still had a rocket launcher, because why not? And the revolver was very, very nice, because you could just snipe people from a distance.
That was pretty powerful in the first one, I remember as well.
Yeah. The game did sort of drag on a bit when you constantly had to remove obstacles from your path when you were on the boat or on the car. Like it sort of felt like it kept cutting like the flow. But for the most part, it was a really enjoyable game.
So maybe now I'm thinking that maybe Half-Life 2 is actually the major reason why the series is still so much a thing.
Probably, yeah, because Half-Life 2 was... well, the first one, like I said, was on the PlayStation 2. I think it was on the Genesis as well, but it didn't have what you would call clout. First-person shooters were not a big thing on consoles, but in 2000... I think it was 2005 or 6 when it was ported. With the orange box, 2007 actually. So they ported it like a while later. First-person shooters were a thing then, and people really liked it on consoles as well because it was Half-Life. It was a really well-made, polished FPS where you had the freedom to do a lot of digging around in an otherwise linear story-focused experience, which is the opposite of pretty much everything you could do in most similar games. You couldn't do that in Halo, really. You couldn't do that in Call of Duty. If you tried, you just get shot in the face. Here, you could just chuck a barrel at somebody. You grab a bunch of wood, kick people over the head with them. You could tear down buildings, and it had really awesome set pieces that were more than just things you looked at. It had Ravenholm, where the entire city was a trap. Everywhere you'd go, there would be traps, and you would start out mostly with just the gravity gun, and you would home alone your way through the level. You would try and kill things with everything that was around them. It was amazing.
Yeah, because I'm just going off of the analogy you made with Heroes of Might and Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though you and I prefer Heroes of Might and Magic 2,
3 is amazing.
We are quite aware, and we also like 3 a whole lot. But the majority of gamers now, well, not necessarily now, but in the present, have had their first interaction with the series starting with 3.
Yep.
So yeah, that was their introduction, and going forward, that was the 4 notwithstanding, which is a special case. That's their standard. That's the standard for the series.
Mm-hmm.
Much like how this works. So even though, as far as we're concerned, started with Half-Life 1 or Heroes 2 in this case, as far as the mainstream is concerned, it started with Half-Life 2 or Heroes 3 in that line of questioning, and the older things are there just to support the most recent thing.
Yeah.
I
would say that you are correct.
Yeah, from that perspective, that does make a bit more sense for Half-Life 2 to have been the thing that the actual catalyst of the community.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Half-Life 1 was big for its time for what it was, but it's still just a first-person shooter on PC. That's kind of a lot because back then first-person shooters were becoming the new hotness. They were still not like super duper gigantic, as they were not the only thing as they are now, but they were growing.
Oh, yeah, I know. Granted, I was always not into FPSs that much, but yeah, what we played in the net cafes was Age of Empires and StarCraft and Quake 2.
Whereas when Half-Life 2 showed up, FPSs were the hotness, and this was a really, really well-made, well-polished one that had a great single-player mode and no multiplayer. They added multiplayer twice. Once via Counter-Strike Source, which people have mixed feelings about, and then they came out with Half-Life Deathmatch, Half-Life 2 Deathmatch, which was really fun, especially because you had the physics engine in it. You had all the stupid stuff you could do in the single player with the physics you could do in this one. And people just went insane with I was playing hide and seek with people. Not a hide and seek mod. No. Just piling boxes on top of each other while somebody was not looking at the screen, or had their character turned around in a corner. And we were piling boxes on top of each other to get to the roof of a building that you could not get to normally. Then we take the boxes apart and just chuck them everywhere. And then we'd yell over Skype, "Okay, now try and find us." That's what we did on Saturdays for hours on end. And it was very, very important what skin you chose, because all the Combine had glowing eyes and you could see them in the dark.
Okay.
It was a very, very fun experience. And mod support for the game was also very useful because Valve learned this from the first game. And you started getting mods like the very, very famous Gary's mod, which is just a sandbox for Half-Life. It just lets you spawn anything in the game and do whatever you can do with it in the engine. Have you tried the Gmod like at all?
No. I don't have. I haven't played. I haven't really played a lot with any sort of mod, to be honest. Not even the Fallouts. I haven't modded those because I want achievements.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't. I can't really. Did I ever mod?
Not even the first one, at least, with the restoration mod. The first two restores a lot of content.
No, I didn't play restoration.
Oh.
I tried to stream it, but it didn't interact well with OBS. So no, I guess. Maybe I should, but no.
Well, with the mod support for this game with Gmod, I learned of Gmod because there was a like at Level magazine, right?
Of course.
At the end of it, there was a section with what's on the internet right now that's funny, and they had a little corner like, this is the Half-Life 2 comic. Concerned Half-Life comic, and it's about Gordon Froman. That's a character in the Half-Life universe that goes around and does stupid thing. And there was a little shot of a panel of Gordon Froman with an axe stuck in his head. They just look funny, and you can only see the text because the picture was small. But eventually, when I got into it, I got to read the comic, and it is the funniest thing you'll ever read, and game derived comic form. I mean. It is absolutely fantastic. It is a retelling of the story of Half-Life 2 through the eyes of an idiot. It's sort of like what Opposing Force and the Blue Shift were for Half-Life 1, but these are from the perspective of a character that's not actually in the game. It was put in there by thanks to the power of the Gmod of being able to just edit the game whatever you want to. He was put in there and just put into all the situations that Gordon would eventually go through, or in parallel to him. They even slightly interact with each other in the sense that Gordon glares at people. He never speaks. It's a fantastic comic. It was written by Christopher Livingston, which I believe he now works for PC Gamer, because his writing was really good in that comic, like top notch. Let me see actually if I can find the comic. Half-Life Concerned.
If you find it, make sure to link it in the description.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's been moving around from place to place because it's not at its home page anymore, since that went down a long time ago. But this thing was written over the course of from 2000. At least 2004 to 2007, so over the course of 3 years. It ended with sometime after the release of Half-Life 2 Episode 2. So it covered everything. Well, kind of everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think it skipped over some parts because they just weren't interesting, so we just skipped them, like a Nova Prospect level, where the character goes to Nova Prospect and says, there's a guard at the gate and says, we're closed. Oh, okay. And he just goes back instead of going through the Nova Prospect level. It's a very very good comic to analyze, because I'm not sure if in the current version there are still the notes at the end of each. No, they still are there. They're still there. There's notes to each panel, to each comic, that tell you how the thing was set up. And at one point, there's a level with a bridge where you as Gordon Freeman have to get through the bridge, and you had the character, the Gordon Freeman character, had to go through a similar situation, but do it comically. So how would you do it? So he just Christopher Livingston, the author, just sat in his chair, like thinking, how am I going to get through this level? How am I going to put the story in there? The result was he just had the characters. He put the character in the chair, thinking about how he's going to get through it, and then something completely random to get through it. It was a very, very funny story. So I encourage everybody to go and look it up if you get a chance.
You post the link in the description, man. Make it easy.
I surely will. And as I mentioned, they did get 2 more episodes. Half-Life Episode 1, which dealt with... Half-Life Episode 1, I think, was the most linear of all. It didn't really let you roam free. You mostly just hung around the Citadel. And then in the second one, you got to fight Striders and blow them up and ride a really, really neat sports car. Muscle car.
Hey, everybody needs a
hot rod, yeah.
Yeah, Lance Vance dance.
Yeah. And then the series ended with a big-ass... Well, Half-Life 2 itself ended with a cliffhanger. Then Episode 1, I think, ended with it ended with an actual cliffhanger because you were in a train that blew up while going over a cliff.
Ah.
And then Half-Life 2, Episode 2 ended with a cliffhanger. And we're all waiting for the 3rd episode. But we sort of know what sort of happened because Mike Laidlaw, the Mark with a C, not with a K, there's another Mark Laidlaw from BioWare, I think. He wrote the story that he was going to put into Half-Life 2 Episode 3. He published it on the internet with different names for characters.
Ah.
And it does go in places that you didn't expect. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody in case you want to read it, but it sort of leaves the door open for Half-Life 4 sometime down the line with maybe not Gordon Freeman as the main character. That story may not actually be, and that goes my phone because I forgot to shut it off.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. It's my nephew. He wants to know when I'm going to post a new video on YouTube.
Okay.
Never mind that. So the story, I forgot actually what I was talking about.
About the story of Half-Life Episode 3 having been on the internet. Because
that's on the web now, Valve may not actually be doing that story anymore. They wanted to do episodic games, and that didn't work out because, making a game the size and the quality level of a Half-Life game, that is not something they can do in a year without murdering everybody working on it.
Actually getting the quality level to where you want it, because
they're Valve. They will do insane stuff like add AI to roaches for no reason. So they dropped that in, I think, 2008 or 2009. There was an interview with what's his name? I forgot him. Doug Lombardi, 2009-2010, where he said that the episodic format is dead, so they're going to go back to the monolithic, the big ass game, which they've been making it in some version on and off for a while now. There was an episode 2.5, if you will, an episode 4 that's going to be made by I think it was Arcane Studios. It was about you going to Ravenholm when it was still not horrible. It was sort of a prequel type of affair. That never got made. Valve decided to not make games for a while. It did make Left 4 Dead, but it's focused a bit more on making a lot of money on Steam, which is
and it's
focused on.
It's been doing that for forever, and I think it's been making even more money ever since they shut off Greenlight and did this $100 and you're on the store thing.
Yeah, I think we can actually calculate how much money Steam makes just like at a bare minimum of those games, because they all have to pay like $100, and Raul used to make a show with each release that's on Steam. He stopped when Steam Direct was launched because it would have killed him.
Well, at this point in time, it's impossible.
Yeah, there's a couple of thousand a year, so I actually think we had a statistic for it somewhere, but
Yeah, no, it just basically skyrocketed.
yeah.
So I had a talk in like not this year, last year. I had a talk about doing some low to no budget marketing for indie games, and that was just after Greenlight. We knew Greenlight was gonna disappear,
Mhm.
and I told my audience at the time that we don't know exactly what's gonna happen, but rest assured that this will most likely open the floodgates,
And it did.
and to a certain degree, it definitely did. Now we're not yet in the realm of the shit show that is mobile gaming, in terms of insane amount of asset flips and stupid shit
Well, to be fair,
existing there.
those were in some form around even when Greenlight was a thing, and some of
Oh
them
yeah,
were
yeah, yeah.
just
No,
they had
I'm not
publishers
saying.
for them as well.
Yeah, I'm not saying they don't exist, and a lot of the new games aren't that. I know. So I'm just saying at least for the time being, it's not as bad as the mobile market is. But I don't know, man. It's getting harder and harder for uh, really cool games to get through. It's like literally harder than it was literally a year ago.
Yeah, that's why Steam sort of needs a better interface. They're actively working on making better curation tools, and the curator system is there for a reason, to help people that follow certain other curators that have tastes similar to theirs, that they trust their recommendation. To go to
Yeah.
those people to see what gems they can dig out. You can probably do something like that, like be a Steam curator and try to dig out the good indie games and make sure that people
I
know
am.
about them.
I am a Steam curator.
See, he's
Yeah, but zero people are following.
well. We can put your link in the description if there is a link. I haven't actually used the system.
Well, granted, it's like so. Obviously the games I curate are the same games I review, because obviously. So it's just as easy to check out my channel. But yeah, I do have a complete nonsense. Is a curator. I have a curating group, whatnot, but I haven't updated it in a while though, to be honest. Because again, no followers, no one gives a flying fuck.
Yeah, that's an issue. Hopefully, we'll get more followers by talking about Half-Life, because it's still like 40 million copies. So who knows? Also, it's been
Well-
free like 50 times already.
We'll see. We'll see about that. So, do you actually? But now let's get to the serious nitty gritty stuff. Do you actually think there will ever be an episode 3 now, considering how much it has been built up in the mind of the audience? Because Valve hasn't done anything to. This isn't a No Man's Sky situation. So they haven't really done anything to stoke any sort of expectation.
Well, Half-Life Episode 3 is a no-go. I think they've said as much, but Half-Life 3 may still have a chance to come out at some point, and will it live up to the hype? That's
That's kind of that's kind of the roundabout question I had infiltrated in the initial one. Because after all this time, wouldn't it be better just to never release anything? Because I don't really think they can. I don't really think they can match, let alone surpass the expectation.
well. It depends. I'm starting to think how they could actually pull it off. Like if they could actually make a better game than Half-Life 2, how would they do it? Like what would they need to do? Because with they did it once. Like the Portal is an amazing game. It was called a perfect game by some. It was lauded as being a superb, magnificent game. Portal 2 was better. So they somehow managed. Stephen Merchant was annoying as hell, but that was the purpose of his character. I felt like that was an even better game, and it came from a prototype of a student game called The Power of Paint, I think, where you could paint the walls with gels and stuff. And I think if they can find an idea, a core idea for Half-Life 3, like physics was for Half-Life 2, they can probably pull it off. And I was going to say maybe they can try and use time manipulation, but that's already been done like 3 times, and it hasn't really worked out well for the studio that made them. I mean, Raven, after they made their time bending game, they've only made DLC for Call of Duty, so it's not a great fate to have. Not really sure what they could make.
That's exactly
the problem. Yeah.
Maybe after 5 more years for VR to get more affordable and better, and maybe jump straight into VR. But I mean, if I were them, I would just not engage.
I think Gabe Newell has something along those lines in mind, because he was asked at one point if he'll ever do a Ricochet 2. Ricochet being, I think it was a mod for Half-Life, and he said, in terms of quotation marks, Ricochet 2, we always have this problem that when we talk about things too far in advance, we end up changing our minds, and we're going through development and stuff. So we are thinking through the gigantic story arc, which is quotation marks Ricochet 2. You might get to a point where you're saying something is surprising us in a positive way and something is surprising us in a negative way. And, we like to be super transparent about the future of Ricochet 2. The problem is we think that the twists and turns that we're going through would probably drive people more crazy than just being silent about it until we can be very crisp about what's happening next. So they're trying to do something, but they're sure as hell not going to tell us, which is it's a better approach than teasing a sequel.
Yeah, and this is why I say that they haven't actually done really anything. They just basically, that answer is he said we're kind of working on something, but we just want to be sure the concept is right, but he could just be bullshitting.
Well, I don't think he is, because there have been leaks with stuff from Half-Life Episode 3 for a couple of years now. It taking place in the Arctic with the Borealis and with the story that the Laidlaw published. So they were working on it. They probably still are. There's also the issue that Valve has like that famous flat hierarchy where nobody's anybody else's boss, and people work on what they feel like they can do best at, and that doesn't necessarily lend well to making giant projects like Half-Life 3 would be.
Giant projects, no, but in a smaller company, like in a startup, that's
and something that could make Portal, that absolutely would work, and they did Portal, and it worked.
Yeah, that works great. That actually works great. Okay, man. So you're a bit more optimistic than I think you should be.
Yeah,
but
I start each year with a prediction, top 7 predictions, and one of them is Half-Life 3 will be announced / released this year. My favorite one is that. It's going to be the PC gaming conference at E3. The screen goes dark. There's an image on the scene goes like this. It's pitch black. On the screen you see like the G-Man saying, "It's been some time, Mr. Freeman." Then it fades to black. Then Gabe Newell is on stage, like out of nowhere, says, "Half-Life 3 is out now on Steam." Drops the mic and leaves. Like that's how I want it to happen.
But I don't think. Do you think Valve needs E3 to do that?
Well, it does. It has been at E3 a couple of times with Portal 2. I think Left 4 Dead 2. But the point of that would be just to announce it to the world and just see if anybody will ever actually attend that year's E3. Because if they announce that, who knows?
Yeah, but we live in a quite in a different type of world than even when Portal 2 came out, in terms of how fast news spreads. I mean, the internet wasn't necessarily the same back then, but just like the prevalence of social media and how quickly we find out about stuff. And I don't know if they need that sort of.
No, they wouldn't like at all.
Big event, yeah. It just has to. If they just put it on Steam Twitter's gonna explode 3.2 seconds later.
It's enough for Gabe Newell to show up in a picture in some dark corner of Reddit holding up 3 fingers, and everybody will lose their goddamn mind.
Exactly. It just has to show up a bit on Reddit, and then it's picked up within the 3.2 minutes. So I don't think they need... I mean, what you're saying would have been cool, I don't know, 5 years ago, I think. Which is probably when you came up with the idea.
No,
but
the PC Gaming Show was, I think it's 3 years old, so I think around there.
Yeah, close enough. So yeah, but I don't think... didn't Sony say that they're not coming to the next E3?
Yeah, I wonder why. What are they trying to avoid?
The first time in how many years? 14 years? I don't know.
Since E3 is a thing. 23 years.
23 years, okay.
They've never missed one. They were the only console developer to never miss one. Because all the other ones went bankrupt or stopped coming to them a while ago.
So I don't... And we talked about this. E3 hasn't... You've talked about this more because I haven't. I never really gave that much of a shit about it. But yeah, it really stopped being about the games and...
Well, it was never about the gaming community because it was initially a shareholder thing. It was an investor thing. It was an industry thing. They let people in at one point because people really wanted to get in. They were getting in by saying, "Oh, we're a gaming news site." Really? What's your audience? Well, we have there's Bob there. He visits it. Okay, get in. Come on.
Constantly.
Yeah, that's how everybody wanted in. So they made it open to the public, like I think in 2011 or 2012. Until then, it was still a press thing.
Well, technically speaking, since we had such pretty good feedback, I'm gonna say, on our last episode, on our news roundup episode. I don't want to say great because I don't want to fluff ourselves up too much, but it was pretty positive. Yeah. And actually, I don't have a webcam. So we might actually have to cover the main things, the main gaming things from now on GameTales.
Yeah. I mean, I was already doing that in the normal shows as well. So it's...
Yeah, but we'll just combine them. We'll just blend them together, and with my very not popular opinions about stuff.
Oh, it's gonna be good.
Yes, it will be.
There's also the tradition of live streaming them and snarking over the events themselves, which is quite popular on the internet.
We can definitely try that. Depends on scheduling and hours and stuff like that.
A lot of them are at really bad hours for us. They're like the Sony ones at 6 a.m., the Nintendo ones at 5 a.m., then there's Ubisoft at 3 a.m.
Yeah, so that's not unless somehow the podcast just take off and the ad revenue is rolling in. Yeah, we can wait. We can wait for the next day.
Yeah, we'll see what happens next year. Yeah. But that's pretty much everything I have to say about Half-Life. It's a series that I enjoy, especially Half-Life 2, because Half-Life 2 is insane freedom. You can do you can be so cruel to the Combine. You can be so unbelievably cruel to them. And it's funny. It's like a slapstick comedy that's really disturbing if it had more blood in it, if it had dismemberments for the humans as well. It has for the zombies. I don't think it has for the humans, but if it had it would be like really, really shocking what you can do to them. Poor Combines.
Ah, well. Someone has to lose.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what happened. Maybe that's what happens in episode 3. It's gonna be the Empire Strikes Back of the franchise.
Well, technically, this Half-Life 2 episode 2 was the Empire Strikes Back because it sort of has the same bittersweet ending.
Okay.
God, why is everybody making the exact same trilogy of things with New Hope, Empire Strikes Back being the darker, the one where the evil wins somehow, and then at the end, everybody follows the exact same structure, and it pisses me off.
But it's a really good archetype to follow.
Yeah, but it's still kind of.
You know it's been successful,
I know.
so probably that's why people do it. I don't know.
It's like whenever I see those charts of how a story is supposed to progress and how your audience should be feeling at this point in the story, like, yeah, that recipe works, but does everybody have to follow it? Can't we find new ways of making stories?
Again, it depends if you want them to sell to a mass market or not. That's a
Yeah.
separate that's for a different episode.
Yeah.
So that was about it for Half-Life. I don't know. So after what you've said, I don't really think Half-Life is overrated anymore. So there's that. But I don't know. I still don't. I guess it's just because I was never the FPS person.
Could be.
I was never that. That's what I mean. I enjoyed playing Doom and Blood 2. I kind of really like Blood 2, and not a lot of people play it anymore or talk
Yeah,
about it. To be
I was
honest,
sort of in the Half-Life situation that you were in with Blood 2 because at one point it crashed and I could never get past, I think, this third level.
hmm but I really enjoyed Blood 2. I didn't finish it, although maybe I should do it now. Maybe I should make like a bunch of retro reviews. Yes. So I don't really think it's overrated, and I have a bit better of an understanding as to why people are so let's not use an uncool word, but they're so passionate. Let's go with passionate about it. But if I were Valve, I would just never release anything that has the Half-Life moniker, because it's just been too built up at this point in time.
Or when the company eventually goes belly up because, I don't know, something else replaces Steam as the next big thing, they could
What
just...
the only thing that can replace Steam now is a meteorite.
Yeah, when the meteorite strikes, like 5 minutes
Exactly.
before impact, they release Half-Life 3 and the world goes out in peace.
At this point in time, that's the only thing that can replace it. It's just if you literally dislodge them from the planet.
Or maybe the pent up exuberance, the expectations that people had of Half-Life 3 and them seeing that the game doesn't live up, that energy gets released and diverts the meteorite. I think that's
Or
the
it
plan.
gives, or it gives birth to a new chaos god. So it's
Yeah, that would work. Too.
yeah, it's been those things have happened in fantasy before.
Mhm.
So what do you have up on the channel this week, basically, besides Blood?
Well, besides Blood, there's going to be a show about, I think, Machinimas, which is the art of turning video games into movies.
Isn't it Machinima?
Yeah, I guess you could call it that.
Is this an Arcanum situation again, Unacam?
Yeah, I just love saying Arcanum. It flows so well.
We need to have it flows up your ass. It has no, it doesn't.
It's so
That's not how that works.
It's going to be a top 7 of the gaming trends that need to stop. There's going to be
That should be interesting.
a review of the TV I bought a couple of months ago. Okay, it's a gaming TV. Well, it works.
Gaming TV.
I can tie my PC to it and play games on it in 4K. So there, it's a gaming TV.
Point taken.
Yeah, I need to subsidize the price of it somehow. So you're getting a review for it. Maybe we'll get $50. And then there's Blood. There's 2014 and a play now of 8-bit armies. We got code for 8-bit armies for some reason a couple of weeks ago. So I'm gonna make a show about it.
I don't know what it is. It sounds like something I would be playing.
Well, imagine if the creators of Red Alert and Command and Conquer made that, but with Minecraft's art style.
Oh, okay. It's not me then.
It's an art, yeah, so Red Alert.
Maybe. Okay. Well, we did dedicate an entire episode to whether the RTS is dead. So
Well, it's coming back. I mean, the remakes are coming back. We had the StarCraft remake and now the Command and Conquer remake. We have Electronic Arts says we're sorry for rivals.
And we do know Warcraft 3 is getting reforged, so there's that.
Everything is being remade.
Yeah, that's hardly. Maybe it rejuvenates the genre.
Maybe.
I doubt it.
Well, we'll see how it goes along. And well, that's pretty much it for the next week of shows. Actually, they're supposed. I filmed a play now of Grip. I think it was probably published yesterday, depending on how the schedule is set when Raul was.
No, I don't think so. I think. Oh, it depends.
Yesterday, if the day's Monday.
Yesterday's Sunday. Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I see your future past talk speak. Yes.
Yeah.
And on my channel, I might actually have a super short video because whenever I'm gonna try to make gaming videos, I need to keep them short so that it doesn't blow up my laptop when rendering. And I think I'm gonna have a quick video about Ebony Spire because since I also mentioned it, and it's a 1 year anniversary version edition thingy update majig.
Which is the play now that should be published, I think today or yesterday. It's going to be published with the Grip, after the Grip one.
At a certain point around whenever this episode of GameTales goes up. Yeah. It's weird. It's weird when the schedule isn't scheduley.
Yeah. Also when we're talking about it in past terms, even though it's in the future.
For us, but not for you.
Yeah.
See what we did there?
Mm-hmm. And now, shall we await any time travelers? I mean, maybe they'll announce Half-Life 3 by the time this goes out.
That would be extraordinary if we have to go back to the past, but I heavily doubt it.
Yeah. Or maybe. Dun dun dun. Goodbye, everybody.
See you next time.